Sikkim 365 and Baylor Plus have teamed up to bring Baylor fans the ultimate content bundle. You can sign up now for $17.99 a month, a $5 monthly savings, and get instant access to all premium content on both websites. For more information, visit either sikkim365.com or baylorplus.com today. What's up, Baylor family? Welcome into Inside Baylor Sports, the official daily podcast of Baylor Athletics. Cole Barber here with Grayson Grunhafer. It's Thursday, August 29th, and it's time for our weekly visit with a current Baylor football player. This week, we will catch up with Baylor junior receiver Josh Cameron to discuss what he's seeing from his Baylor squad coming out of fall camp. Grayson's 6'1", 218-pounder, 610 career receiving yards, 59 receptions. Solid hands. I think that Josh is kind of overlooked because of the small things that he does, but he also has decent production considering he's just going into his junior season. What's your initial thoughts before we hop into our interview with Josh here in a second?
Josh has always been such a great interview and just a great person. You can really tell and feel that he's a big part of kind of Baylor's culture, to be honest with you. And I think he gets overlooked a little bit because he was a walk-on initially. And I don't feel like, people don't quite give walk-ons the same respect as other players who started as scholarship guys. And that's mainly because they follow their recruitment and everything like that. And so it's a different situation, but Josh has definitely thrived during his time at Baylor. He's made some big plays for the Bears. He's been a big part of their offense the last 2 years. And I'm fully expecting him to play another significant role this season.
Yeah, it's interesting. His high school career was very good. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but it was one of those, once he got on campus, you're kind of looking at like, why is he, like, you see his size and you see his production from high school, and then it's like, why is he a walk-on? Like, why is this? And then for 3 years, he's basically said, I shouldn't have been a walk-on from the beginning. I should have been on scholarship all along. And I think that he's only going to continue to develop. And I think so often it's overlooked, the developmental stages of players in general, that he came in as a walk-on, but he's going to continue to develop. And I think that for him specifically, epitomizes this entire team. There's a lot of guys who are going to continue to develop to make this team what it is for this season. If it goes to being successful, it's because of the development that happened.
Absolutely. And he gives them a veteran leader, a true leader, and they have a bunch of veteran leaders in this room. And so you're really expecting this group to make a nice jump. And I think I always look at Josh and I'm just like, this guy is the ultimate utility guy in the wide receiver room. Whether you want him to block, you want him to make a tough catch over the middle of the field, you want him to win a one-on-one battle. He does a lot of things. Then he also makes an impact in the special teams area as well. He's a good punt returner. He'll probably, at least in my eyes, I'm projecting him to be the starting punt returner this year for the Bears as well. So he's going to play a huge role. He's kind of that Swiss Army knife for the room, and ultimately a guy that's going to be very important, I think, to their success. And it might not be the biggest numbers, it might not be the most touchdowns, but he's going to have moments where you're like, oh, yeah, he's a huge contributor for this team.
Yeah, it's 6'1", 218 pounds. And if you see a picture of him like working out in the weight room, just ripped. Like, most defensive backs aren't going to look at him as a receiver when they line up, and then they're going to realize he's a receiver. He's built more like a tight end, not nearly as tall, but physically built. He's thick and he can move. I think you're going to see a pretty steady year for him. I think there's so many receivers in that room right now, upperclassmen. They're going to have roles that no one is just going to emerge from the pack as this. You hope there is, but right now it doesn't seem like there's going to be this one 1,500-yard type of receiver in Jake Spavital's offense. So I'm anxious to see how they use him. I think he's a guy that they can line up in a number of spots offensively. I would assume that he's going to be one of the better blocking receivers, which is why he's listed as a starting receiver on this depth chart with basically 5 seniors, 2 juniors. Like, he is a starting guy despite being a former walk-on. And I think his versatility, like you mentioned, is a reason for that.
Absolutely. And they got a bunch of different weapons, a bunch of different packages they're going to be able to roll out. They can go 5 wide receiver, 4 wide receiver, 3 wide receiver, and a tight end. They have a lot of versatility that they can utilize. And I expect Josh to primarily be on the outside, but I could also see him moving into the slot some if they need him to, especially for blocking purposes as well. So very curious to see how they use him. Again, I think he's just going to be used in a variety of ways, moved around the formation, and really just kind of be a staple in their offense for one reason or another. He just continues to make enough plays and make the impact, and the coaches recognize that.
Yeah. So with all that said, let's hop on with Josh right now, have a conversation with him, and then we'll react to this afterwards. But I'm really excited to talk with him about the quarterback situation, the offense, Jake Spavital, the defensive side of the ball, everything. Just have a number of questions for him. I wish we could go with an hour with him. But with all that said, let's get into the interview with Josh right now. Baylor fans, here with Baylor receiver Josh Cameron ahead of the Bears season opener against Tarleton this weekend. Josh, excited to have you on with us this week. How excited are you getting for Saturday?
Shoot, I'm more than pumped. Just being able to play football again on Saturdays in front of all the Baylor fans. I mean, what opportunity. So, yeah, no, thanks for having me on, though.
Good. Yeah. So I think I speak for both Grayson and myself when I say like we have probably 1,000 questions that we want to ask you about this new offense. So we've probably narrowed it down a little bit, and we're just going to kind of pepper with you a little bit. So I'll start, and then Grayson, we'll just kind of rotate going back and forth.
Perfect.
But what are you most excited about with your specific role, not just the offense, but your specific role in this new scheme under Coach Spavital?
Something that I like, and I think Spav has hit on this a couple times too, just the ability for me to play kind of anywhere on the field, whether it be slot, outside. With this offense, I kind of getting into it, like really just got to know each and every position so I could put myself in the best place going into the season. So being able to move around and hold different bunch of areas, that's kind of the strong suit that I noticed for myself going into the season and with this offense. Also, just the one-on-one matchups this offense creates, I think it's just going to be really fun being on the outside and just kind of having that connection with DQ, honestly.
Kind of just diving into that passing game and the concepts in it a little bit more. What would you say are kind of the staples of the passing game, the things that y'all are really focused on and kind of know that you're going to use in this offense?
I would say just really being up tempo and then just reading our opponent based on what they're playing. So if they're playing a certain look, we'll do a certain route. If they're off, we'll shut it down. Just little basic things like that. So really just reading the defense and just picking them off based on what they're playing. That's kind of just the kind of core value with this offense moving forward.
So you mentioned a connection with DQ, the starting quarterback. He won the battle over Sawyer. What about him is that connection like with you specifically on and off the field? I mean, it seems like he's kind of developed into a good leader since he's been there. But just tell me a little bit about that relationship with you off the field, but also on the field.
Oh, yeah, no, on the field, we get together after practice, make sure if anything that we saw during the practice wasn't right, we get that corrected. And just knowing this really just throughout the offseason, that's where it really started. Just the after lifting, we'd go throw. We throw early in the morning, just things like that, just kind of building that connection on the field and off the field. Yeah, though, that's my dude, honestly. We can just always kick it, hanging out, having a good time. But on the field, he's just been a really great leader for this offense. He stepped up vocally, and yeah, he's gonna be real fun to watch in the fall for sure.
Just kind of hitting on DQ a little bit more here. Obviously, he wins the job, and Baylor fans haven't gotten to see him a lot. He was very successful at Toledo and has played a ton of football. What do you think his experience from Toledo will bring to this team coming up into this season? And what would you say are kind of just the strengths of his game?
I would say a big strength of DQ's game is really just his running ability. When the pocket breaks down, just his ability to scramble, find a little hole, and just hit it. Like I forgot, there was some clip on Twitter, but he's one of the fastest guys on the team. So when he gets out in the open field, like he's definitely a real threat with his legs. So I'd say just his running ability when the play breaks down and just extending plays. That's just a real strong suit of his. And we've seen that countless times through fall camp, the spring, summer, through scrimmages, things like that. And so finally being able to see it in an actual live game, I think it's going to be awesome for sure.
Yeah. So this receivers room is overall very experienced. I mean, you have the core guys returning from last year, but then you also add Ashton, you have Jamal, yourself being just a junior, but it's really kind of upperclassmen heavy. How is that a change, and what are the benefits of having such a deep room of upperclassmen in the receiver room?
Kind of like you said, with the aspect of being older, the game just slows down in a whole different level. You got guys like, for example, Jaden Porter. He's a freshman, so at times you can see the game's kind of moving fast for him. But we're just bringing him along, getting him accustomed to college play, things like that. But for guys like Keytron, myself, Hal, Ashton, Jamal, Ray, all of those guys, you can definitely tell like we see the game a little bit slower. So whenever we're out there, we're just moving more full speed, better pace, just knowing what to do at all times, whatever the defense throws at us. Because when you play really with anything, the more experience you get with something, the more comfortable you become in that field or area. So yeah, just really the comfortability level of playing football has definitely upped with the upperclassmen and just the entire room, honestly.
Throughout the offseason, I think a name that's been mentioned a lot is Ashton Hawkins, and we've gotten to see him a lot and just kind of, he's played a lot of football again, like a lot of experienced guys being added to the table here. What's he going to do for this offense, and kind of what are some of the things you've noticed about him since he arrived that are going to help the team in general on and off the field?
Yeah, no, he's just a huge piece for this offense, I'd say. Him already playing with Spav, he brings in kind of knowledge of the offense already, and just kind of drops little tips and tricks while we're going through the plays, practice, because he's run this offense, of course, already. But him as a player, I mean, he's a dog. I can just flat out say he's a dog. He catches the ball, some of the strongest hands, biggest hands I've ever seen, even though he has a smaller frame, and his hands dang near bigger than mine. I have pretty big hands myself. So yeah, no, he's a great dude. He's gonna add a lot of value to this offense. And so yeah, no, he's gonna have a great season for sure.
What was the biggest thing for you personally that you wanted to develop? Obviously, you're switching offenses, schemes, your role within that offense. But once you got it settled into that, what was the number one thing that you saw for yourself personally that you needed to improve on from a year ago?
Something I wanted to improve on is just winning my one-on-one matchups as much as I can, making the hard contested catches as much as I can. That's just something that being a bigger receiver, I just know that I can do that and I have the ability to do that. So really throughout fall camp, I've just been working on that. Whenever it's a contested catch, it's my ball or nobody's ball. So that's just been the biggest thing. Like I said, there's a lot of solo matchups now with this offense since we're more spread out, things like that. So I know feel real confident with when the ball comes my way, it's my ball or nobody's ball. So that's something I've been working on.
Your offense in high school, and I feel like a lot of the offenses in high school that a lot of the receivers have played for were more spread and more kind of air raid heavy and things like that. How much of an adjustment has it been, you feel like, for you to go from wide zone, which very different concepts and very different things that you're asked to do, to now into this spread system, which is more like what you were doing before you got to Baylor?
I wouldn't say the adjustment was anything too crazy because, like you said, coming from a spread offense to wide zone, I think that was kind of the biggest adjustment going from spread to wide zone. But going back to spread, I would say it's a little bit more simple because it's more just concepts, just play with speed, things like that. So I would say the adjustment period wasn't too crazy, honestly, and it was honestly really smooth.
Good. So looking on the other side of the ball, and obviously it's a full team effort to get back to where you guys want to be this year, but what stands out about that defense with Coach Randa taking over it? Do you notice a difference with him being on that side of the ball and active? And then just the personnel. I mean, what's the attitude like on that defensive side of the ball for fall camp and truly dating back to the spring?
Oh yeah, no, the defense. Really, just at the beginning of fall camp, I could just see a different energy, kind of hunger from the defense, and I would say it honestly started up front with the D line. You got a whole bunch of guys. Jackie Marshall, he's finally back. He's gonna make a huge impact on the field. It's been real exciting. Even with the secondary, you got Caden Jenkins, Carl Williams, dudes like that. They've always been dogs, but I've just definitely seen a different level from them. We've been getting after it on both sides of the ball, so it's been real fun to see. You got linebackers, people like KT and then Matt Jones, both real high effort dudes that just fly around and just make plays all the time. So I think that intensity and hunger has just been elevated since Coach Aranda has just been calling plays. And yeah, no, it's been real fun to see. And like I said, we've just been getting better, getting to play a defense like that. And so you can even ask like the QBs, they've just seen some crazy looks because Aranda has some crazy schemes, a whole bunch of stuff. Even whenever I'm running around my route, I'm like, hey, this is wild. But no, it's been real good to see for sure. That's cool.
All offseason, Dave Aranda's kind of mentioned that this group has a different level of edge, a different level of physicality, a different level of competition from last year. Do you feel that? Do you feel like that is definitely something that you've seen throughout the course of the offseason?
Oh, yeah, no, I definitely feel that. Like I said, really starting really in the summer, just the competitiveness whenever we're doing drill work or really just basic things like that. People were just flying around trying to win. Something different with this offseason as well. There was more like competition-based drills. So we were competing against DBs or wide receivers. We were all just basically trying to get better as much as we can. Then that kind of translated in the beginning of fall camp. Like everybody was getting after it. And like it's just been really fun. So I've said the edge has just been all-time high for sure.
So shifting off the field a little bit, your position coach, Dallas Baker, will speak to him tomorrow, actually, for the podcast. But is there one specific story that he has told you that has just caught your attention? Because I know he can be a storyteller when given the opportunity. So I'm curious, like, do you have one story from him that it could be serious, it could be funny, but like, what's your story on that he has told you, or just a Dallas Baker story that you've seen personally happen?
One specific story. Man, there's so many. I don't know which one. I would say maybe I think whenever he role plays when he role plays being like Urban Meyer and like a team, man, if something like this happened, Urban would have said blah blah blah, this and that. So I think whenever he just gets into the kind of role playing aspect when he turns into Urban Meyer, I think that's the funniest kind of story. So he does that a lot throughout just the wide receiver meetings, team meetings, when he sees different things. He's like, man, if this is Urban Meyer, blah blah, this and that. But I'll say that's a high point for sure.
How important was it for you that Dallas Baker came back to Baylor? Because they made so many changes, on the offensive side. I mean, he's the only one that came back. And so how big was that for you? And how big do you think it was for the wide receiver room? As we know, y'all have really good relationships with Baker as well.
I think it was just a really huge thing. Kind of like you just said, the relationship aspect that we have with Coach Bake is really just I don't know if I've had a relationship with a coach like I have with Coach Baker. So, and a lot of other guys in the room can attest to that. I would say even with Ashton, who just came into the room, he's like, yeah, like when I just got here basically, and I haven't had a coach like this. So I think him coming back truly was a big thing for our room, and is going to be a big thing for our room moving forward and going into the season.
So this is my last question for you, Josh. What is it like being in the Fudge Center? I know we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but like, what is that building like? Like, is it just a whole new ball game now that you're over there and kind of out of the old facility?
Yeah, no, it's an entirely new ball game. Really, just everything is upgraded. Like, I would say the biggest thing was the weight room, though. We've started doing some lifts there in the weight room just recently. And they got these like Swedish weights or whatever, like these fancy Swedish weights. I'm like, dang, this thing is legit. And then the locker room is just a whole new level. And so yeah, no, it's really just everything. From the meeting rooms, locker rooms, the showers, cold tubs, all that, training room, everything's just bigger and better. And yeah, no, I've just been enjoying it. Kind of just every time I walk in, I'm like, dang, like this is ours. So, yeah, no, it's been awesome, man.
Do you feel like not just the addition of the Fudge Center, but I feel like this whole offseason, there's kind of been this renewal of momentum and positivity. And just, I feel like everyone's in a better place after what happened last year. How exciting is it for y'all to kind of turn the page with all this momentum, with a good offseason, and really just focus again on football and trying to, rebound from what happened a year ago?
Oh, yeah, no, it's huge. I feel like everybody saw last year. Everybody really still has that kind of taste in their mouth. Like, we don't want to go back to that. Like, we don't need to go back to that. And we won't go back to that. So I think kind of carrying that into this upcoming season has just been huge. Kind of like you were saying earlier, the edge and just the hunger, just really every day has just been a whole different level what I've seen sometimes in the past. So it's just been really exciting. And I think just really setting the tone, starting with Tarleton.
Josh, thank you so much for your time, man. We appreciate what you do on and off the field, and a great interview, and we look forward to watching you on Saturday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
So, Grayson, we just finished up our visit with Josh. What is your initial reaction to what he said? Was there anything that really stood out that maybe you didn't know that you wanted to know more about?
I mean, first of all, it was just great catching up with him. I mean, this was just a great opportunity for us to talk with him and just really kind of get some insight into what's going on. I mean, the first game of the season's coming up, and just getting more of an inside look is a huge deal. And I think the biggest thing for me is, when he talks about the edge, when he talks about competition that has been consistently preached all off season, this kind of mantra of, we don't want what happened last year to happen again. And these are the steps that we're going to take to make sure it doesn't, I think is really important. And then he also, you can tell he had a little bit of edge. They're planning on coming in and playing Tarleton and smoking Tarleton. They're not coming in planning on this being close. They're not planning on this being, just this hard fought game. They're planning on coming in and really establishing something to start this season. And I think that's really important to have that mindset, to have that edge when you're looking at, this kind of matchup. So yeah, that was the biggest thing for me. I think Josh really gave a nice example of kind of how this program has changed over the course of the offseason and how everyone's mindset is very much on the same page right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all of it translates to the season. I think we know what they want to do, and it's appropriate to have that mindset already. So for me, I think it goes back to the quarterback position. His talk on DQ Finn, Daquan, like, the relationships established there, it seems like that's a pretty consistent theme for all of the receivers. And obviously we haven't talked to all of them in this type of setting, but every single one of them mentioned being able to have a relationship, good chemistry with DQ, his leadership, his experience playing a factor. And for Josh to talk about that even more is, I just think it can't be overstated. And not that previous quarterbacks weren't. I think we saw with Gary Bohannon what leadership can do in terms of elevating an offense, even though maybe the strengths and weaknesses are different than Daquan. His leadership was the staple back in that 2021 season. And I think if DQ can provide something like that, that's invaluable to this offense that's new, and it's going to be done in a lot of different ways than what they're used to. And DQ kind of being that solidifying force is important for this offense.
It's pretty amazing that he did that in such a quick time. I mean, it very much seems like DQ came in and really established himself early as a leader for this football team. I also want to mention, I think Sawyer is a very good leader for this football team as well. But just huge that DQ was able to come in and really establish that early on. And I think he gained the full trust of the team, and by the end, the full trust of the coaches as well, obviously. And so I think when it comes down to it, to have a guy like that has really bought into the program and has as much experience as he does, I think it's really going to help this football team going into the season, because I think he's going to provide a calmness in pretty much every scenario because of how much football he has played.
Yeah, it's kind of like his scrambling ability. If you've watched this film, he never gets rattled. And I think that's just his personality. We've seen him in interviews. We've seen him in all different faces with all different types of faces, with his helmet on, with it off, in front of the mic, behind the mic, wherever it is. Like he's kind of the same dude every single time. And I think that consistency matters. You can talk about his talent, but if he gets rattled or he's not a good leader on the field, then the talent can go out the window pretty quick, because there's a lot of talented guys that never make it to a high level of football. So I'm anxious to see him. I think Josh in general, I think summarizes what we've talked about all season, what has been said. And obviously Josh is going to have a crucial role in a lot of different ways. I think if you talk about production, maybe he's not the leading receiver in receptions and yardage and touchdowns, but he might be the guy that springs 2 or 3 big runs in a game for DQ or the running backs, or he's the guy that's, leading the way on a wide receiver screen. I think that's the type of role he's going to play. And there's a reason he's a starter through another system. Josh is a starter. He's listed as a starter. And he's just kind of battled that his entire career at Baylor since arriving as a walk-on.
Yeah, he has. And I think, Josh mentioned this as well when we were talking to him. Just one of the staples in this offense is one-on-one matchups. And so the guys that can win one-on-one matchups and go up and catch 50-50 balls and win off the line of scrimmage, those guys are going to play. And frankly, no one on this roster has proven that they've been able to do that over the course of their career outside of Ashton Hawkins. He's the only guy that has done it for multiple seasons, time and time again. Everyone else still has a lot to prove in that regard. And so I think that makes this very intriguing. It makes this room very intriguing. And I think because of that, there's still some uncertainty going into the season with how exactly everyone's role is going to be, how everyone is going to perform in this new offense. But I think in general, there's a lot of confidence that this offense will be successful. And that's coming from the coaches and what Josh said, just how comfortable it feels and how everyone feels like, they have a good role and a good sense of what they need to do for this to be successful.
Absolutely. All right, Baylor family, that's going to do it for today's episode of Inside Baylor Sports, the official daily podcast of Baylor Athletics. Thank you to Josh, and thank you all for listening once again. For Grayson Grunhafer, I'm Colt Barber. Have a great Thursday, and sick 'em Bears.